Hello, it's AlinaGG, and today I have a very special guest, Rebecca Paisley, Ayurvedic consultant from Colorado. Welcome aboard.
Hi.
Hello, hello. And we thought we would discuss cycles and regulating the nervous system. So, let's just introduce you, Rebecca, and just tap into what motivated you to start this business in the first place.
So my motivation is basically comes from my own health journey. I struggled with my cycle for a very long time, and part of that was having an unregulated nervous system, having a poor diet, not having, the right lifestyle choices going on in my life. And after struggling for a very long time and going from doctor to doctor to doctor, the only solution I was given was pharmaceuticals or to have surgery. Um, and I was like, man, just seems crazy. Like I'm not like sick and dying or have some terminal illness. Like this should be easier to resolve. And that kind of led me into uncovering natural ways and natural remedies and just learning about the different herbs and things you could do on your own without necessarily needing a doctor's help. And after testing it out on myself and it actually working and then helping some friends along the way, it was like, man, like this is something, and people really should know about it and learn about it because there is different ways than what modern medicine, especially Western medicine, teaches us.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. And then with the nervous system regulation, have you delved into any favorite modalities? Do you use breath work or any other things like that?
For the nervous system regulation, I realized my nervous system was way out of whack after I went through a traumatic experience. And I was like just anxious all the time, constantly looking over my shoulder, clenched up, like ready to fight at any moment. I was like, okay, something has to give here. And the first thing I was introduced to was meditation. And I did that for 6 months straight, every single day, twice a day, um, and noticed a huge difference just in my thought patterns. And then that kind of led me into the yoga realm and breath work realm of regulating the nervous system. Um, so yeah, it was a
Wow.
journey from meditation to breath work was like the final
Yeah.
key.
You reverse engineered it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. And
Yeah, I know. I tell people
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like meditation makes me laugh. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and wondering now, like with regulating the nervous system, is there like an exercise that we could do right now?
Um, hmm. I didn't have one ready,
I know.
but
Talk about put you on the
I mean,
spot.
even
What's that?
good.
Oh, that cut out a bit.
um,
Was that?
even just like even just simply closing your eyes and taking, 5 deep breaths and counting like up to 4 on the inhale and down to 4 on the exhale, um, is super nourishing for the body. So if we all want to like close our eyes,
Yes, please.
find a comfortable seat. Then take a conscious inhale, counting up 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Taking another breath in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And slowly letting the breath return to its natural rhythm, keeping the eyes closed.
Mm.
Notice the sensations in the body. from your head to your toes. And in your own time, gently blinking the eyes open, taking your time.
Thank you.
So it's
That's
like something even as simple as when you're in a rush or going all over the place and just pausing for, 3 or 4 breaths can really help to remind the nervous system that it's like, all right, it's not time to fight right now. It's not time to run away. It's time to just recenter and focus.
yeah, that is so powerful. Yeah, I love that. I really felt that. I felt it really like centering and grounding. And it's nice when someone else is counting rather than it's just myself. You know what I mean? It's kind of nice just to
Yeah.
have someone else counting and holding space for that. So yeah, it's great. Hey, like so and how long did that take? Like literally that was seconds, like what, not even minutes, you know. So yeah, yeah. Have you heard of the concept pattern disrupting?
Pattern disrupting.
Yeah.
I think I've heard it. I haven't looked that into it.
Yeah, it kind of feels, I don't really know what that means these days, but what I feel that that means to me is like, yeah, if we're having busy thoughts in our mind, we really, they're just going to keep looping, right? Because they're habitual and they're stored in the subconscious. But if we can disrupt that pattern, you know, with some mindfulness and breath or going for a walk or something, you know, it would help, yeah, change the body, change the thought pattern, change the physiology, change the breath. Like it's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we get stuck in like our tunnel vision. It's like when you're at work or trying to get home and get stuff done around the house or whatever it is, it's like all of a sudden you're just in tunnel vision of what you have to get done. And that alone stresses you out because you just see this giant to-do list going on instead of just focusing on the one thing in front of you. So taking that time to stop the spinning for a minute, and then you realize, like, oh, if I just focus on this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I do find that challenging sometimes, I'll be honest. Yeah. Some people it seems to come easier to than others. So I guess we all have our different genius zones and maybe it's practicing self-compassion whilst I go, hey, focus up, bitch. You know, sometimes I feel
Yeah.
like it's you know, sometimes I'm like, wow, I just got so distracted like in that moment. Like I was doing one task, then I went to another task and then I was like off somewhere else. I was like, oh, that's okay, you know. It all tends to work out in the end, so maybe not beating myself up for that is good too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't beat yourself up about it. That just makes it worse.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Oh man. The human experience. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though, because how like what percentage of our nervous system, right, affects our life? Like what percentage of our past and what we're holding in there and what's stored in there is affecting our future?
I would say a lot of it. I mean, we make all of our future decisions based off our past decisions, and we're constantly looking back at our past, being like, well, did I do this right? Or did I do this wrong? Or, it's like even after you leave like a business meeting and you walk out the door and you close the door, you're like, did they like me? Did I say something wrong? Did I do this right? You're constantly like just ruminating over all of these things. And if you don't take time to, get out in nature or do some breath work or move the body, it's like all of those like negative thoughts and questions get trapped somewhere in the body.
Wow, that is so true. That's amazing. Even that awareness, right? So if everyone listening can go, okay, today I'm going to observe when I'm feeling a little bit unsettled, you know, whatever you want to call it. I had a coach who used to call it fluttery because when we're saying like anxious and you know whatever all the stronger words, it sometimes can plant that feeling deeper in the body. And I don't know, how do you feel about that reframing? Does that resonate with you or not?
Yeah, I think you have to learn how to reframe situations. It's like, say you miss out on an opportunity, and then you look at it super negative, like, oh, I missed out, I'm going to be a failure, then nothing's ever going to work out. It's like, well, you need to look at it, from a different point of view. Well, I missed out on this because something better is coming, like
Yeah.
something that's more aligned with headed is
Yeah.
coming. So it's
Yeah.
like you have to constantly figure out how to reframe things, even if it's the thought of like um something as simple as like, oh, I wondering when you being anxious after you left the house, like, did I water my plants? It's like, okay, well, it wasn't that important, it's like, just move on, and it's like they'll be fine, and keep going. Reframe it like, oh, I can do that tonight, instead of stressing yourself out all day about something so simple. And then of course the problems get more and more complex, but I was trying to use something that is relatively just
Yeah.
more simple.
Yes. And sometimes the little things can be the most persistent little thoughts niggling away. Yeah, I often find myself writing a shopping list when I'm meditating. That's like a grocery list. Do you ever do that? Yeah, sometimes I just.
Yeah, or coming like all of a sudden, like you sit down to quiet the mind and you have every to do imaginable pop up, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna make this whole list while I sit here, and it's like defeating the purpose of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But
And
also that list, like, the body to relieve stress, so it's like
oh,
it's
that,
natural for the mind, you
oh,
know.
just cut out a little bit. What was that? The first part of that to relieve stress? What did you say?
Is that when you sit down to meditate, a lot of times when you have all those thoughts going on, it's like that's the body's way of like starting to let the bubbles rise out of you. Um, and so it's like the longer you sit, you'll notice like the first 5 minutes of meditation super noisy, but then like as time passes, it starts to quiet down more.
Yeah. And what's springing to mind for me now is that when I studied yoga in India in the ashram, my Swami, he was this Romanian guy actually, and he wore orange, and we called him like the Romanian carrot. And he used to say, every time we had like a pain in our body or something going on, right? Someone had a weird rash or whatever, he would just say, purification, purification. Like everything, every symptom was purification because it all comes to the surface, right? All the toxins. And it must be the same with the mind. It's got to come out somewhere. Otherwise, it's just being suppressed down, and then it's going to come out stronger because it wants to be like released, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're purifying the mind every time you sit down and quiet it down. So it's very much the same.
Wow.
From the mind to the body, it's like they both have symptoms. The mind is harder because you don't see the anxiety or the depression or the triggers and stuff like that, whereas physical stuff, you can see the broken bone, or you can see the rash or the breakout, or feel the fever. So that's where it gets, it's harder sometimes for people to wrap their head around the mind part of it because you can't see it.
Yeah, that's true. It's elusive. Yeah. And it can play tricks because we are not our thoughts,
Yeah.
right? We are not our thoughts. Yeah. So we're like, oh, that's right. Yeah, they're just habitual, and yeah, they, who knows? It's like that's not who we are, right? We are the silent witness of the thoughts. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Can we drop into like more the womb now and like speak into that? Into I had a womb healing yesterday. So yeah, just how your your work relates to cycles of energy, and yeah, what do you have to share around that?
Yeah, I mean, tying it back just into the nervous system to segue into it is like when stuff's not regulated in the body and the mind, symptoms arise, and those symptoms are always trying to tell us something. Whether it's like, hey, you've been eating too much fried and greasy food, or you've been overexerting yourself, or you haven't been getting enough rest, whatever the missing piece is, like the symptom appears, whether that's period cramps, anxiety, depression, bloating, back pain, other body aches. It's always like the body's trying to guide us in that direction of purification. So it's like that symptom arises, and it's like, okay, that's here. what's going on this last month or 2 months that would cause that to happen. Um, and so it's like if you just constantly like track your cycle and like look at when you have the symptoms in the various phases and when stuff arises, it's most of the time very cyclical where it always appears like between the 10th and 14th day or 2 days before your period. And so it's like learning how what your body is doing each month, I think is key. Because then you can kind of tell what is going on and start to work to pinpoint what you're doing in your day-to-day life that's causing it. Maybe
Okay.
you're not taking enough rest. Maybe your nervous system is totally out of whack and your body doesn't know what to do. Because
Mm.
our reproductive organs are the last tissue to get nourished by the food we eat. And it's like if our bodies don't feel safe and secure, then that function starts to shut down because it's nature being like it's not safe to reproduce. Um, and so those functions start to shut down when you've had a lot of trauma or just nervous system dysregulation because the body doesn't feel safe and everything's just tightened up into a little ball trying to protect itself. And then the more you start to regulate, the more it starts to release and relax and things go back to the normal flow of things. So that's why it's like it's important to regulate the nervous system on top of eating the right foods and doing the right exercises and stuff so that way your body gets what it needs all month long.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And how can you chart your cycle if you were irregular, if you had a big gap, and then like would you just base it on 28 days or 30 days or something and just still chart like just imagine it's do you know what I mean? Like how energetic wise?
You would just like say you're somebody like a lot of people with PCOS don't get a regular cycle. They can go like 3 months, 6 months, a year without getting a cycle at all. Um, and sometimes they take medications to induce a cycle, but it's never like a natural one. It's just getting the body to shed the lining. And so how you would track it is you would track the same way, like using an app or a calendar or a sheet of paper, like your symptoms and the number of days that, 28 to 35 day cycle is typically where you're at on a normal cycle. And then just mark the missing days. And keep tracking your symptoms. It's like, did you feel anything that might have been like a period? Did you have a little spotting? Did you have cramps? Because sometimes you'll get other symptoms that indicate like where you're at in your cycle. Another way that people can do it is like taking ovulation tests or tracking their basal body temperature because you're where you take your temperature first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. And there's always a big dip right when you ovulate, the temperature drops down and then it spikes back up. And so that's a good way for people not bleeding because they can still see that they're going through ovulation. They're just not having the menstrual phase.
Hmm.
Or they can see, oh, I'm not even ovulating. Because always, every time that day you ovulate, the temperature drops way down. And so that's really the best way to track it. And then if you're not getting your cycle at all, it's like you can start using different herbs and stuff to try to get the cycle back at that point. Because something's going on with that downward flow of air and movement where it's not happening. Like, so something's stuck there that's not letting the downward flow of the blood happen. And so there's different herbs that you can do and different yoga poses and other therapies that you can do. It just really depends on the person and their unique situation as to what's going to be the best way to get their cycle back.
Hmm. Well, also, like when I studied yoga, it was like believed that it would be good to basically transmute the energy and transmute the blood back into the system and actually encourage it to sort of go upwards rather than downwards. Like, now I'm confused. Yeah, do you?
Well, do you mean when you're on your cycle to have it go upwards instead of downwards, or when
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
just
on your cycle?
yeah, to actually do inversions and transmute the energy back up into the system in like a tantric fashion, always like rising the energy up to the higher chakras.
What lineage of yoga you studied that in?
Sorry,
Or
which lineage?
like, was there a certain,
Sachinanda, I
yeah,
think. Yeah,
okay. Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah,
and
from my like you don't if you do you can do inversions and stuff like that on your cycle when you're bleeding, but it's going to yeah, it's going to reverse the flow so it stays inside the body. But your body's trying to shed that lining and give you new start for the month. So I at least from what I've studied, it's like you want to do as much stuff to have it flow downwards to release. And then towards the end of your cycle, when it's wrapping up, like, some people, it doesn't just stop. It's like it does this weird spotting thing for a couple days afterwards. At that point, it's like start doing the inversions or shoulder stand or headstand to get the period to go away. Um, Towards the end. But as far as I've been taught, you don't typically do the inversions when you're on your cycle. You do more like restorative yoga or slow
mm,
flow type things.
yeah, bit of yin going within. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, so day one of a woman's cycle, it is best to go within and naturally be quieter and calmer. And yeah, we're meant to. That's how we're designed, right? During that phase, it's not the time to go out and just be like doing heavy work. But a lot of people were living in this society where the energy of time and how it's been constructed is very masculine. The windows of time and energy where you have to, prepare meals, do kids, do work, do all the things. It's very masculine. And it's like, if you just go, I just need to be in my feminine for 2 days, it's like, well, then it means that you got to pick up the slack elsewhere, because you can't keep all the balls in the air all the time. And then I think really that level of stress and forcing and pushing does lead to burnout and health issues. So it's like, I guess for me, I have to find a way where I can balance my own energy and honor my responsibilities. And honestly, I'm still trying to find what that is and what that looks like and feels like. And I'm sure a lot of people would relate to me listening. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like you said, it's hard in today's world because it is such a masculine dominated thing, especially the workforce. Women don't get to take a day off once a month to chill. Like you're lucky when your period lands on a Saturday because then you get Saturday and Sunday to to yourself for the most part. And so it's definitely really hard. And I would say rest is probably one of the things that like a lot of my clients don't get enough of because they're constantly having to tend to kids and meals and jobs and partners and animals and everything else in their lives. So the biggest thing is like carving out that time for yourself throughout the month. Like, find one day a week where you can spend 45 minutes in the bathtub relaxing by yourself. Whether that's after you put the kids to bed or wake up an extra 45 minutes early to do it in the morning. But you have to start, like, you can still be busy every day, but try to start finding 30 minutes or even 10 minutes of time each day for yourself, whether you just sit there with your eyes closed or you take a bath or you go on a walk or whatever your thing is that you enjoy alone and that's peaceful. And then like if you start with the 10 minutes, slowly start adding more and more time to it after that, because then it starts becoming easier. Because like what I've always noticed in myself is I never thought I could like take the time for myself. I always was like, no, there's way too much to get done. I have to care for all these people's needs. I can't do it. But when I started like with a small amount of time, it's became easier to be like, well, that made me feel really good. Like things are way better and I'm still getting everything done. And then it's like, all right, you start feeling less guilty to take the time because you realize how much your body needs it. But you just starting out small, even 5 minutes, as small as you have to start. And then you'll start to see the benefit and it'll become important to find more time to do those things. Whether it's like not scrolling on the phone as long or doing, some other stuff or asking your partner if you have one, like, hey, my cycle's about to start. I need you to cook dinner for the next 2 nights because I'm going to go relax and like rest. And it's like, I think that's fair if you're cooking dinner 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks out of the month, they are more than capable of cooking a couple nights in the month. And most of the time, nobody minds. It's like they realize, like, I think as women, we feel guilty asking for that help and like asking or letting people know, like, hey, I need a break. Because we feel like we need to do it all. But a lot of times I find with myself and even clients, like when you ask for it, like, hey, I just need a little extra space today, everybody's really considerate. They're like, oh, what's going on? Are you okay? Like, can I help you in any way? Oh, I'll do this for you. Oh, we'll order out tonight so you don't have to worry about it. And most of the time people are considerate about it because they realize you're trying to take care of your health. And ultimately, it's like the more you take care of that, the better person you can be to them throughout the rest of the month.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we can't give from an empty cup. We have to fill up our reserves and give from our overflow. And then we're truly giving from the heart. That's unconditional love. And otherwise, if we're really like almost running on empty and we keep giving, 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 then resentment can build, and it turns into that martyr syndrome as well, right? It's like, yeah, so interesting. Yeah, great.
That's where a lot of the agitation and irritability and mood swing stuff that happens before women's cycles sometimes, some of it stems from that. You never took time for yourself, and now you're almost about to bleed, and your hormones are shifting, and you get really upset with yourself for not feeling well. And then it's this snowball effect of taking it out on other people when really, if you just earlier in the month would have said, hey, I need a day, or hey, I need this, I need an hour. It's like, it's okay for us to ask for help or for space or whatever we need. But I think for some reason we've been like conditioned in some way that we're just supposed to be strong and not ask for anything. And that's just not how it should be.
Yeah. Well said. Definitely. My gosh, good to remember that every day, and it's give and take. And, it's if we're going to give and pay it forward, then it's okay to receive. And it's like that's such a journey to learn to receive. And I think underneath that, it's like as we increase our self-worth and maybe heal some of our ancestral lineage, then it creates more space to receive and more bandwidth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The more we practice it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, is there anything else you'd love to share before we let people know how they can find you and connect with you, Rebecca?
I mean, I just think we've kind of hit a really good topic with just learning how to receive and ask for the help. That is a huge chunk of the healing work, is just like learning that you don't have to be superwoman and do all of it on your own. You can relax, you can take a nap, you can sit back, like you're allowed to rest. And like we as women are cyclical. So it's like men's hormones reset every 24 hours. Ours reset every 28 to 35 days. So it's like we are living in a man's world without the being able to nourish each phase. So just remember that as you try to go out into the workforce doing things, because you're feeling different every day for 28 to 35 days, where a guy wakes up every morning and it's just like, okay, it's another day, it's another day. So like honor that and notice where you're at in your cycle and take the time that you need so that you can pour from a full cup and not an empty cup.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was just really wonderful to hear you really enlighten me on so many things today. And yeah, if people would love to know more and work with Rebecca on Instagram, she's Rebecca Paisley. And anywhere else you'd like them to have a look?
Yeah, Instagram is Rebecca __ Paisley, and then you're always free to reach me there. There's a Facebook page with the same handle, and my DMs are always open to just chat and be a safe space for you to come and vent or ask questions or talk about whatever's going on in your life. So don't feel like you can't reach out with even the tiniest of problems. I'm always available to chat and offer some insight in any way that I can.
That is so beautiful and so supportive. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.